Maya began clawing her neck when she was barely 7 months old. But no one seemed to notice. That is, until a prominent mass that left doctors perplexed emerged just below her jaw. Its cause was far more startling than anyone could have predicted and necessitated emergency medical intervention. Aaron and Emma, living in the sleepy Kansas community of Hutchinson, were still getting used to being parents. They had been blissfully happy for the last 7 months, learning how to take care of their beautiful baby girl, Maya. Life seemed almost perfect to them. Aaron and Emma have been together for years, building a stronger bond over that time. Before beginning a family, they wanted to make sure they were secure both financially and emotionally. Their top goal was to up a calm and harmonious home for their future offspring. Emma first felt that she had to watch Maya's every step and that she was being an overly watchful mother. She was too afraid of losing sight of Maya, even for a brief period of time, because she had heard far too many tales of kids being harmed by negligent parents. Emma eventually became physically and mentally exhausted from the continual scrutiny. Even when Maya was with Aaron or her own mother, she found it difficult to unwind. Aaron ultimately persuaded her to take a break, urging her to go out with friends and give herself some alone time away from their priceless little child. Emma was appreciative of his help but also recognized she had to let go a little and follow her gut. By the time Maya became 7 months old, she was starting to become more aware of her surroundings. She was thrilled to be able to touch objects and would greet every noise with a wide smile and happy babble. Like most babies, she was curious about the world around her and could sit up straight on her own. Maya was at the point where she wanted to eat anything that she could get her hands on. Emma was always extra careful as a result, making sure that no tiny items were left lying around. She was really afraid that Maya might choke on something, especially because a close friend's 1-year-old son nearly died from a small piece of plastic caught in his throat. Had it not been for the prompt and dependable response of a paramedic who lived nearby, things would have turned tragic. The young kid was lucky to escape without any long-term injuries, but Emma's memory of the event was permanently damaged. With Maya starting to crawl, her parents had to deal with an entirely new set of difficulties. They had to sweep the entire floor and ensure that the kitchen cabinets were secured firmly. Putting safety covers on outlets started to rank highly as well. Their hands were full and they were on high alert all the time due to Maya's curiosity. Following a nice family meal on a Friday night, Emma and Aaron were excited to get a little extra sleep the following morning. However, Maya was exceptionally fussy and was moaning in a way that wasn't customary for her. Just below Maya's jaw on the left side of her face, Emma saw a tiny red spot when she lifted her out of her cot. It appeared as though Maya had severely scraped the region. Emma was upset with herself when she remembered that Maya hadn't had her mosquito protection sprayed the night before. They had all fallen asleep because they were so exhausted. In addition to giving Maya a bath and treating what she thought was an insect bite with calming aloe balm, Emma also added antibacterial to the water, in order to help Maya feel less uncomfortable. She also gave her a small painkiller. Although Maya seemed a little more in need than normal, there wasn't really anything to be concerned about. After receiving consolation from Emma and Aaron in turn, Maya gradually nodded out. Emma's mother arrived late on Saturday morning and became worried about her grandchild right away. Emma was conflicted. She didn't want to overreact, which is a common error made by young parents. She didn't want to go to the hospital and be informed that her bite was merely a bug bite that would go away in a day or two with some ointment. Nevertheless, Emma's mother recommended they visit the hospital as Maya grew increasingly agitated. Her gut told her there was much more serious going on. That afternoon, Maya's jaw swelling had gotten much worse and the area had become irritated. Emma knew that this was not a typical circumstance. Maya needed emergency care when her face swelled to the size of a half golf ball. She was brought to Hutchinson Regional Medical Center in Kansas. Even though Maya was still her normal happy self, the physicians were first at a loss for words and were unable to quickly diagnose the condition. After examining her, a number of experts gave differing perspectives, but none of them could identify the exact cause of her condition. Ultimately, the chief medical officer determined that it was probably just a swollen gland. The reason for the swelling was still unknown, but the physician was sure that an antibiotic course would take care of it. Maya's family was sent home without any planned follow-up appointments after the medication was prescribed because the physicians thought the swelling would go down in a day or two. Aaron and Emma had an appointment the following day. And although Maya was still not feeling well, they thought it was because the swelling hadn't gone down yet. Although the physicians reassured Maya's grandma, her worries intensified when she saw that the edema appeared to be worsening rather than improving. Despite her willingness to volunteer to babysit, the grandma took action after only 1 hour of observing her granddaughter. Maya was escorted back to the clinic by her mother since the swelling had expanded to the size of 1.5 golf balls. The swelling and the appearance of a pimple-like protrusion on top of it both pointed to the accumulation of pressure in her cheek. When the doctors reached the hospital, they were taken aback by how quickly everything had changed. Although the exact cause of the enlargement remained unknown, the attending physician had suspicions that it might be a staph infection or a problem with her lymph nodes. Draining the edema was the first course of action. To avoid spreading infection, the doctor took great care while squeezing the pimple, making sure to do it in a sterile environment. He used a purple pen to draw a circle around the injured region so he could see if the swelling was getting worse or better. Subsequently, Maya was prescribed antibiotics to be given intravenously every 2 hours. Staying in the hospital to constantly monitor her condition was clearly necessary. The physicians were still stumped as to what was causing the huge bulge on her face. Even after all the treatment, Mama Emma had to tell her daughter and son-in-law that their little girl had to go to the hospital because they couldn't help themselves. It was clear that Emma and Aaron were somewhat worried. If they had been aware of how serious it was, they would have gone home in a flash. The admission of Maya to the hospital intensified their shared sense of duty to be present for their sick child. The parents returned to their daughter in a flash after receiving the news. Her face beamed with joy at seeing them. Although Emma was taken aback by the sight of Maya being given intravenous antibiotics, she soon came to the realization that her daughter was doing fine because she wasn't sobbing too much. Aaron attempted to defuse the situation in his customary humorous manner. As a joke, he said that Maya reminded him of the fictional character Quasimodo. The momentary lightheartedness helped to alleviate the gloomy atmosphere in the hospital room. And Emma, who was initially too anxious to enjoy it, eventually joined in. The family could do nothing but wait that whole Sunday. And it seemed like forever, as the hospital was deserted save for the influx of emergency patients. Emma and Aaron were left to gaze at the purple line that the doctor had painted around Maya's edema. The swelling still wasn't gone, but they had to put their faith in the experts since they didn't know anything about medicine. The doctor who was caring for Maya promised to come back early on Monday to see how she was doing and figure out what to do next. A number of nurses came and went during the day, while Maya did cry a few times. mostly in response to the needle pokes. Her sobs appeared to stem more from fear than discomfort. A different doctor was there to greet the family on Monday, even though they had hoped to see the same one. As the nurse described Maya's condition in medical jargon that the parents could not comprehend, he hurriedly perused her medical records. A scab had grown over Maya's cheek wound in the 2 days prior to the doctor's examination. Carefully scraping it off, he explained that the wound had to stay open so the fluid could drain correctly. He then looked over at Emma and Aaron and inquired as to the duration of the swelling. The parents were quite worried, even though they could only establish that the lump had developed a week ago. Due to its rapid development, the light bulb went out, and they understood what Maya had been attempting to convey for months. It hit them like a ton of bricks. Their daughter had been pulling at her left cheek for 3 months. They had disregarded her unusual conduct, thinking it was merely a habit she had acquired up. But Emma had looked for a medical reason for it. At first, she thought her little girl had an ear infection, so she took her to the doctor. After she eliminated that possibility, she asked whether Maya was hurting because of teething, which can start anywhere from 6 to 12 months of age. The doctor agreed that this could explain why she was acting sick and clawing her cheek. The parents and Maya had also been engaging in a little game in which the parents would pump up their cheeks, smack them lightly to release a burst of air, and create a popping sound to get Maya laughing. These gullible parents thought she was only imitating the game they used to play with her. The doctor asked the parents to leave the room for a short while he examined Maya. He cleansed the cut and looked for any leakage of fluid. Upon their return, Maya had a moment that clearly upset them and pulled at their hearts. The physician told them he would be back later that afternoon for a follow-up and asked for silence in the room while he worked. Aaron and Emma noticed something odd as they examined their beloved daughter's face closely. A little string sticking out of a tiny hole the doctor had created. Bewildered, they looked up possible explanations online and attempted to decipher the actions of the physicians. The parents didn't ask questions because they didn't know what to ask and the doctor hadn't provided any explanations. They trusted that the medical personnel was looking out for Maya's best interests and dared not touch anything. That afternoon, young Maya finally fell asleep, and the pair, full with doubt but hope for answers, made their way to the hospital cafeteria. Their inner anguish was being exacerbated by their weariness, as they hadn't slept soundly for the past 2 days. They made an effort to maintain their composure, but their concern for their daughter was too great. Emma broke down in the cafeteria when the stress finally got to her. The stories she'd heard of kids getting fatal illnesses and passing away unexpectedly had a hold on her, even though she was trying so hard to stay religious. There were times when the horrifying possibility entered her mind. What if Maya was indeed cancerous? What would happen if their young daughter didn't survive? Emma found it intolerable to even consider it, and she was at a loss as to how she would ever get over the loss. Emma's mother had already contacted friends and relatives at this point to beg them to remember Maya in their prayers. Still, it didn't appear like the physicians were any closer to a diagnosis. Emma and Aaron were feeling more and more powerless by the hour as Maya's lymph nodes did not shrink in size despite receiving intravenous antibiotics for 2 days. Emma could tell that Aaron was having difficulty keeping it together, so she knew her daughter was having trouble. They required every bit of assistance. When they got back to the hospital room, Maya's pediatrician showed up for her checkup, reassuring them that they would soon have some answers. She pushed them to remain composed, She questioned about the rope sticking out of Maya's cheek after noticing something strange. The doctors was informed by the parents, who had no explanation, that it had emerged after the doctor had checked her earlier that morning. The pediatrician, clearly perplexed, scratched her head and went into the corridor to make a few phone calls. Upon her return, she snapped a photo of Maya's cheek and forwarded it to a coworker for review. She returned after a few tense minutes and asked the parents whether they trusted her in a steady voice. Emma and Aaron both gave nervous nods. The pediatrician then went on to say that she thought she had figured out what was causing the edema. She carefully cleaned her hands and the region surrounding Maya's cheek, wearing surgical gloves as an added measure of safety. A sense of great anticipation filled the room as she readied herself to reveal the riddle that had plagued the medical personnel and the family for several days. The next thing that transpired shocked everyone. The doctor had worked on the pediatric floor for 20 years. But she had never seen anything like this. She was about to disclose the startling cause of the 7-month-old girl's ongoing swelling. It was absolutely mind-blowing to learn what had been driving Maya to touch her left cheek for months. Her eyes widened in shock as the doctor started to carefully tug at the string. Aaron and Emma were left speechless when the expert carefully removed a black feather, measuring 2 inches, from the swollen part of their infant's neck. Everything in the room was silent for a few seconds. The parents were at a loss as to how something of this nature could have occurred. The physician was also shocked. But all she could think of was that Maya had swallowed or breathed the feather some 3 months prior. The feather most likely punctured her throat or inside of her cheek in the process. Maya's continual tugging at her cheek was likely caused by the body's attempt to force the feather out. Given its exceptional capacity to eliminate foreign items, the origin of the enigmatic feather was the next puzzle to be solved. Despite having a down pillow on their bed, the family couldn't remember allowing Maya anywhere near it. Actually, in the middle of the craziness of taking care of Maya, the pillow was transferred to the laundry room months ago, and it hasn't been back in the bedroom since. They swiftly made the decision to permanently get rid of the pillow even though they couldn't be positive it was the cause. The trauma may have ended, but Emma was still struggling with guilt. When she asked the doctors whether her unborn child had been in any pain during the previous 3 months, she did so with tears in her eyes. The doctors couldn't sugarcoat the truth. They thought Maya had really been in excruciating pain. Despite this, Maya had only sobbed when the nurses stuck needles into her to give her antibiotics. She had never once shown her parents how much pain she was in, for not noticing sooner and for not paying enough attention to their daughter's general health. Emma and Aaron felt guilty. The physicians, though, reassured her that not even the most vigilant mother could have seen anything like this. The finding of a firm knot in Maya's cheek was the last chapter in this strange incident. The knot was a round one, 5 inches in diameter. And although the physicians were hoping it would dissolve naturally with time, they cautioned that surgery could be required if it failed to do so. For the time being, they hoped Maya could start recovering, even if the prospect of another operation was looming. After watching the story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's all about today's stories. See you next time.